Welcome back, it's part 3. We're wrapping up our discussion of MVP versus Innovation Game 2 from WCS by looking quite in-depth at all the things, because why not? A good game deserves good discussion. I was going to throw this, but there's like fragile, valuable objects everywhere on my desk, such as this amazing, amazing pocket watch. Look at this thing. This thing is awesome. Oh yeah, it has like a little gear on the handle. My buddy Eric gave it to me. Ooh, it's so pretty. What are we talking about? Oh yeah. So, to recap, we looked at some of the goals of these players coming in. For Innovation, it was delay this push so he can get up a 5th base, get up battle cruisers, which will exploit the fact that MVP has the wrong mix, which we can clearly see as he's getting 9 tanks and going, oh, Thors! No one really wants to have Thors in Terran vs. Terran. They're great, but I've never been blown away at how many Thors I have in a TVT. MVP's prior goal was to hold on, and wait for 1 or 2 big slip-ups, and then step into the critical position. So hilariously, we've sort of hit a draw of these goals. So now, what does MVP have to do? He did a huge swing and wasn't really able to punch through and doesn't really seem to be able to do that much damage. He's actually got to pull back right now and recoup. And we'll see. We're going to see this transitory period where MVP is just like, ugh. This is a rather vulnerable side to be moving down along. I think he just right-clicked back at his base, but it's important to be aware of that. MVP should be cutting up like this, and then probably up through here, or at the very least up, and then meeting with his forces here. This is a bad angle because we've already just seen dropships down there, and he gets punished for it. So Innovation is just trying to do 2 things in the immediate moment. One is exploit positional mistakes from MVP, such as this. And that right there is the definition of Bio's tactical goals, just picking off little dudes there and there. And then to regain control of the center area, which he does with a scan and a plan, man. So, the question is, now what is MVP? Now what do we do? MVP is in this awkward, awful, gross, terrible, no good, very bad position. So he's going to do a sort of tricky play, which is to begin getting Ravens, largely for point defense drones. We can throw down some point defense drones if we're in a jiffy, and this will allow us to have a little bit of edge against these battle cruisers that are somewhere. Ah, yeah. Oh, yes, there they are. And we have the utility of these seeker missiles here, but MVP is pretty low on choices. He has one of 2 options. One is to try to take this, but that's not a very good option. Because if we take this, then suddenly we have to defend from attacks down here, and our opponent can just easily gobble up all the various bases on the map and begin, putting pressure up on this base, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So here's where I think the big mistake of Innovation was. Number 1 was trying to engage this force. This is far too over-ambitious. Small numbers of tanks will always crush middle numbers of bio. There was just no real reason to engage here. Now, if these siege tanks, for instance, had sieged up, if these siege tanks had, say, sieged somewhere like here, the bio moved forward, but the tanks weren't involved in this. Right there, that siege was just crushing, because Innovation could have retreated and done something like siege here, and then begun dropping up here. And it's MVP's in a again, this sticky spot where he has to pull back like this. But this was like, woo! Oh, such a relief. Because so much died from Innovation here. So much died. I mean, right when it looked like MVP was just dead and out, he was given a gift. So this is here's the fortunate part for MVP. MVP can now prepare to do a big swing knowing that none of the big space control units are there anymore. All the bio's dead again. So he has a window where all the bio has to get rebuilt. And MVP is just trying to build up enough to begin swinging back in that window. And then, as you'll note, in Innovation's just trying to delay with these battle cruisers as much as possible, but again, losing another one is kind of... Ugh. So, alright, cool. Raven's coming out. Corvid reactor's getting built. This, another just little bit over-eager of a move, I feel. So here's the gross spot. Innovation, or MVP, had this little window, and it's very rapidly closed up. Now, actually, I do want to come back and talk about this because I see a confusing question. Yeah. Actually, I guess it was at the 27-minute mark. So right here, I did mention the sort of, I guess, obvious, because everything died, that sort of obvious note that there's a little window where we have a lot of stuff and our opponent really doesn't have that much stuff on the ground. We don't have to make a huge attack here. Sometimes it's even incorrect to make an attack. The window that I'm referring to is about the bio and control on the ground. Innovation is using these battle cruisers just as effectively to delay and push back. So MVP does the reset up here, and very rapidly Innovation, because he has so much barrack stuff, moves out. Very one-sided engagement, but you know, at least we got to hold some tanks. So Innovation's simple goal at this point is going to be lock his opponent out of this base, and to have enough tanks to siege up somewhere like here and prevent a big invasion. I think the bringing of these tanks down is one of the bigger blunders of this late game scenario. I mean, it's easy to do something like this and to try to cut off this force, and it's going okay, but notice how irrelevant these tanks are going to be when compared to this bio. The bio rushes up and picks off these tanks. These tanks are going to try to siege up. They're going to get just eviscerated, like, instantly. And the only thing that really made it out is the bio. If we didn't bring these tanks and left these tanks back, we'd have a much better stranglehold. So you're noticing this tank count is dangerously low for Innovation, who now essentially has one option. We saw why that expansion was hard to hold. Innovation, again, doing a smart general concept, just trying to blast down these bases as much as humanly possible, but this is only okay if we have a lot of tanku. And right now we only have 3. It's because that tank count dropped down. These sorts of drops, in a general sense, are not bad. A counterattack drop when MVP was just beginning to move out would have been amazing. MVP literally has one play left in him to use Ravens and a superior tank count. It's the same play that we saw at the start of the game. Innovation's in good shape economically. He's in good shape economically. He's controlling the space of the map. He needs to make sure his tank count gets very high. It's still down at staggeringly low 4. Some Thors come out. Don't mind that at all. But then, here is the danger moment. 4 tanks. Low tank count. Low! Very, very low. Lowest tank count versus 14 tank count. With lots of Hellbats to soak up the damage. This could have been 10 or so here. Imagine if this were 10 tanks, and then Marauders were being dropped here. Or Marines, or something like that. Or, I mean, hell, these units down here have already locked out the expansion. We actually don't even need to drop this anymore. We just need to have the tanks here. So in this absolutely stunning final engagement that we'll watch nice and slow. Seeker missiles at clustered targets here and here. You'll actually note that there's not a lot of point defense drones being thrown down. Point defense drones are great against marauders in middle-ish numbers, but you know, we already have the Hellbats and the siege tanks, so there's no reason to be double good against them. And this choice to go Seeker Missile here was so good. He was able to throw down so many of them, which proves to be really useful against these sort of middle-ishly low numbers of battlecruisers. And then yet again, big tank count. And we see almost the exact same play that happened in the mid-game happen up again. He just moves up as far forward as he can. He's in this key point, so now these bases are going to be vulnerable to just tiny amounts of dudes. Drops are always going to be scary versus when you're a meching player. So, sieging on up, sieging on up, sieging on up. Just taking this out. This is a really cool play. Very common play to see on a less extreme scale, but very basically, you just get in between his reinforcement path and a base. And you push like here, and then you just send small numbers there. So these units here, whatever they may be, you can just send those up there. It doesn't even have to do the full-scale attack, and yet it has the feeling of a full-scale attack for the opponent. So it's kind of funny to note that we made a very simple statement in the very early stages. Tanks are so important for the bio in bio versus mech. And it was a lack of tanks at just a key fraction moment in time that allowed MVP to swing through here and do the crushing. Everything getting wailed on. And what are you going to do as an SCV? You're going to engage a tank with a Hellbat there? You're crazy. Rallying a couple more tanks up. Oh, whoop, is it Fun Day Monday up here in the Northlands? Innovation tries to break it. Here's a point where point defense drone would probably be better than Raven Missile. Because again, in these middle numbers, just and then it goes pew, 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 and picks it all off. But yeah, look at that. I do think this planetary fortress probably could have taken out his fair share of tanks, and these barracks may have been able to make 4 or 5 Marines. But a very beautifully, elegantly played out game from MVP. Really nice. Let's go ahead and review the key moments of that game. The first one being this early game push. MVP was totally boned at the start, played very, very held back, defensively positioned brilliantly, having all these tanks unsieged permitted him to siege up in the right spot to maximize the amount of damage he's able to deal to his opponent. And then MVP will actually go to his camera, you know, doing other smart little tactics. MVP then actually sees on the minimap. Scans this, sees nothing at the front, sees that stuff on the minimap, and moves down. And I think the most telling bit in this first-person view is the fact that he actually clicked up here at first. He's clicking out this direction to try to keep a nice distance from that ramp. So here's the first key moment, and we see what happens when you get your tanks and your bio out of position. Very rarely to happen, but of course MVP just lost a lot and then moved this stuff there. These tanks, I think, very comfortably could have been pulled back, and then the bio could have continued its sort of annoyingness at the front. At the very least until it was rebuilt. And this is what allowed MVP to do his first big push up. Of course, Innovation has been preparing for this moment for quite some time. Gets the battlecruisers up, and they barely save him. The second big moment as we scan, as we scrub forward in time, is going to be right at this. It actually happened a little bit before here. Is this... am I looking at this time right? When did those tanks die down here? Oh, they died later. Yeah, here we go. It happens in between here. Here's, in my eyes, the second key moment of the game. MVP's defending, and Edge is, I would say, still tipping towards innovation. But I think it was this moment where he brought these 5 tanks down. There's the other 2 tanks. He has 5 tanks total against the 11 of his opponent. He plummets, just gets crunched way down to 3. Does another little drop, which, you know, suffered losses, but I'm not that bent out of shape about that. I am about the tank count, though. Down to 4. Getting some Thors up to try to break his enemy tank lines, but when it comes down to this final engagement, I think everyone knows that pure bio engaging tanks directly is not going to go well, so the tank's the only real meat for innovation. Was not even present. So in MVP's shoes, he just says, well, lost that expansion. Let me wait until I get these 2 extra Ravens out. Hey, there's my Ravens. A-doo-wah. A-doo-doo-doo-doo. We're almost maxed. Go, 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 go. A lot of scanning from MVP. And just a gorgeous, elegant win. Probably one of my favorites from the tournament. My favorite would definitely be the SOS Game 4 versus Innovation, where he went Tempest, Templar. The game was sweet. So go ahead and open it up to some questions. Subscribers off. Sagacious Techies says, Day 9, why didn't Innovation take an earlier 4th base? It feels like he could have had his 4th up much faster after doing so much damage early, thereby securing a much stronger Sky Terran transition. Let's go ahead and take a look at the moment and ask ourselves that question. Why did he not take it earlier? So we'll watch from the 12-minute mark at ×8 speed. Bam! Why didn't he? I actually think I'll go ahead 2 minutes to the 14-minute mark. In this position, okay, well, he's still getting his defenses set up. So I think that definitely the most important thing right now is going to be to get the tank count up real high. We're already pretty sure we have a high tank count, so I like that quite a bit. Do I think we could have stopped production of anything else? You know, one thing that I think is always the hidden money drain in this matchup is how much medevacs cost. They're pretty expensive if you're just churning them out with the D button. I still would say Innovation got a fairly swift 4th as is. I mean, maybe he could have done that. What do I think about that? He does have a faster command center. Is there any reason he could not have? I guess not. I mean, well, the question is, was it gas that would... You know, I mean, I'm stumbling around in my head because I'm thinking, well, why do you want an expansion? It's so you can do blank in larger numbers, or because, hell, I need these refineries to get these geysers up. But I don't actually think that gas was ever a limiting factor for Innovation to go air. So, although I think he could have, I almost want to ask the question, like, okay, well, what is my mid-game goal and what's my end-game goal? My mid-game goal is to put on as much pressure on the Mech Terran as possible and to just shut him down from expanding while I expand. So I think it's fair for Innovation to focus more on the upgrades and the defense and the factory and barracks production and just churning forward and not skipping out on any of that to try to get all this stuff out like the air and that sort of thing. I actually don't think that there was anything that wrong with this timing. I think that maybe he just should have built this fusion core a lot earlier. I think that's the big thing that delayed him. But, I mean, I think it is fair to say that he could have gotten it up a little bit earlier, but I don't know if it really has that much of an impact. I think the big thing is the tank counts we saw were huge, start to finish. We want to make absolutely certain that we're heading that. We want to make sure that the battlecruiser transition happens eventually. So, let's see. Zenatsu says, in Innovation's position, what could he have done in the last engagement to turn it in his favor? I mean, the common one is stimming, running forward, and then pulling back. You siege your tanks slightly outside of range of his tanks, so you get some shots off on his hellbacks, so you kind of reduce them numbers. I think that maybe... I think the point defense drone was a He was just not in a good position in that last battle. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. That happened just after 32 minutes, or I guess it was like right in the middle of 32 minutes. Yeah, wow. Can I back up, or will it back me up to 30? Alright. I can get the replay to scrub there properly, sorry. But I think he should have had a closer eye on the Terran's army positioning and tried to, like, shove him back a little bit. I think that going around the Terran and into his base, or I should say, if you're bio, going around the mech player and blasting into his base only is reasonable if it doesn't leave you open to him just, like, unsieging and, like, moving over. So in that position, I think that he sort of, like, let MVP down the left side of the slit. Oh, Delphace says, thank you for being a fabulously cheery person. Ooh. Thank you. I am fairly cheery. I believe in being cheery. Manbon says, Day 9, is having a tank hellback composition like that a sound strategy? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the norm nowadays because it's so strong. And even though it struggles against something like a battlecruiser, battlecruisers are slow and you can kind of like respond quickly to them in a way where you stabilize and can proceed. Like, if you get battlecruisers up and I'm like, oh my god, you're way ahead in battlecruiser, I don't have any anti-air, I can just flood a whole bunch of turrets very swiftly and stay alive for the time being. Still coming back to that sagacious techie question, I'm like getting distracted by it. Yeah, I mean, he actually probably could have taken the 4th command center earlier, but I mean, the weird thing about StarCraft 2 is that you just get maxed really easily in this game. Like, so easily. You get maxed all the time in this game. So if you get, you know, 4 bases up, I mean, Innovation's already on the fast track to get maxed. So if he gets the 4th base up, that'll only allow him to replenish his maxed army quickly. So long as Innovation doesn't lose all his shit before he has 4 bases, I think he's fine. I think that's a better answer. But yeah, Manbot, yeah, like Tank Hellbat. In short, Tank Hellbat is so good that if you start to transition to air, I'll just start to feel weakness in your force. I'll be like, yeah, he has so few units, and then I'll push through and break through. And right at the time that you get battlecruisers is the time that I'm breathing down your neck. You like that, Manbot? I'm breathing down your neck. Let's take one more question. Common Philosopher says, what would you suggest a meching player do if the opponent gets battlecruiser transition up and running? Just get Thors. They're very versatile units. I mean, I don't love Thors. I'm like, Thor! I mentioned that earlier, but, you know, just get Thors, and Ravens are good for point defense drones, and of course, I mean, if you're... It's one of those issues where, you know, if you are committed enough to ground, and you begin to try to switch on up to air or do something like that, I mean, you run that risk of him preempting you, and he has like 20 Vikings and 2 battlecruisers, and you have 18 Vikings, so you just snap lose. I prefer the Thor plus some Vikings, kind of still focusing on the ground. Last question from Nades. What time am I starting the Last of Us stream tomorrow? I'm thinking like 2 or 3. Sometime mid-afternoon. I'll be playing till like 8:30 or 9. I've replayed through the start of that game like 6 times just to see that starting sequence. It's so brilliant. So without any further ado, thanks so much for watching. It was a pleasure to do some StarCraft casting today. Doing Last of Us tomorrow, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be at the Red Bull Training Grounds. So tune in there. Just go to day9.tv and you'll just see it there. I have to add the event for Last of Us, so I think that I will do that. Yeah! Yeah! Everyone is great. And the song I'm gonna play is great. Where's my... Oh, these got out of order. There we go. There we go. Show's over, you guys. Bye-bye!